Okay, I think we'll just go ahead and get started, you guys. People can join if they want. My name is Rosalind Dix, and I'm with the Ptac here in Billings. We have a statewide program, which many of you probably know. Some of you may be new to knowing who we are. We'll talk about some of our services today. We do also have Deanna Langman on. She's our statewide program director. She works with me here in the Billings office, and Eads from our Lewistown office is on the line also. So let's just really get right into it. Let me share my screen. Okay, can you guys see my screen okay? My slides?
Yeah, we can see it.
Perfect. Okay, so the purpose of today's training is to really be a high-level overview of government contracting. We'll touch on the federal side and the state of Montana side a little bit. You know, we're not going to go into a deep dive of anything, but it's really to get you some general understanding of some of the processes and what's involved in pursuing government work, and to get you thinking about a strategy. So with that, let's get started. So first of all, this is our website, montanaptac.org. There are some resources here that you can go to. You can also see the locations page on our website if you are not a Billings business, but you know, our other locations around the state will serve your area. So that's where you would go to find out who your advisor is if you don't already engage with the Ptac right now. We post events on our website like this one and others, so you can always come here to see what events we have coming up throughout the year, and some resources, links, and information to help you to help you with government contracting. So it's a good website, and you're welcome to go on there anytime you want. These are typical Ptac services that we provide, and some of you may have already taken advantage of our services. We, you know, in general, Ptac, the point of the Ptac program is to help businesses navigate the government marketplace. So we do that by helping you get registered properly as a vendor, whether it's you know, in the federal space or state. We will do both actually for you. That's what we do with our clients. And we help you do things like market research to help you identify, you know, what agencies are going to be buying what you sell, how often, how much. We help you identify opportunities, and there's different ways to go about that. We do bid and proposal reviews. So we will look at a solicitation with you, help you answer questions, and we can even review your submittal prior to you actually submitting it to make sure you've covered everything that you're supposed to cover. So that's a good resource that we offer, and I encourage you to take advantage of that. So it's always good to have a second pair of eyes on things. Networking events, you know, in the past we've done some events where we connect businesses and agencies. We are going to forgo that this year, but we will think about doing that again maybe in 2023. Vendor registrations, we already touched on that, but that could be, I mean, that could be SAM, that could be the state of Montana site, maybe it's an invoicing system. So it's not just limited to SAM and the state of Montana. There are other registrations you may need to be in that we can help with. And small business certifications. So if you qualify for any of the certifications out there, the state of Montana has one, and then there's some federal set-asides where there's some certifications that are required. We can help you through that process and help you understand if your business meets the requirements. All right, so questions that you as businesses often ask us or ask yourselves in general are listed here. You know, how much does the government buy? What does the government buy? When do they buy? Do they buy what I sell? That's probably the biggest question. Well, and the answer to those is most likely and probably yes. The government, especially the federal government, buys just about everything. And in varying amounts. You know, some things they just buy a little of, there's other products and services they may buy a lot of. You know, the dollar amounts could be really small, all the way up to multi-million dollars. So there's quite the range. And the US federal government is the largest buyer in the world. So there's a lot of opportunity there, and it's just about trying to figure out how to get a hold of those opportunities and find those opportunities. So that kind of brings us to this slide here. There's different levels of government. So we're talking federal, could be state, whether it's Montana or other states. You can do business with other state governments. They have their own procurement processes that you would have to be aware of, and maybe they most likely have their own system you have to be registered in, but you can do that. Then there's local governments like cities and counties. So there's multiple choices here. They can be really, really large or really, really small opportunities. They can be prime contract work where your business has the agreement with the agency, or subcontract work. So it's, you know, really about finding where your business fits. And that's what Ptac is here to help you do. So we help you do some of that research to figure it out so that we can guide you on a logical path to get some of that government work. This slide is really just for your information. I will be giving these slides out today after the presentation because there's a lot of live links in here, and these are two of them. But I just want to bring attention to it because the FAR is the Federal Acquisition Regulation, and this is what guides the federal agencies on how to buy products and services for the federal government. It tells them how to do it. And so it's a good reference tool if you are reading a solicitation and you have questions about one of the clauses, or you just want to know what the procedure is that the agency has to go through. This would be one of the main sources you would go to read about it. And the state of Montana, they also have a similar guidebook, and that's their procurement manual there. Okay. Again, this is another reference slide. It's just for your information. These are some parts of the FAR that are the most common parts you would see, and just to bring your attention to just some of the main parts of the FAR that you'll see a lot of. And so these are probably, if you're gonna read about some of the FAR parts, these are probably the ones you'd want to read about. But I don't encourage you to go read the FAR. It's about 2,000 pages long. So, you know, unless you want some reading material to put you to sleep at night, then you are more than welcome to do that. And the full version of the FAR is online, and that's the link at acquisition.gov is where you can find the full version. Again, this is more reference information. FAR Part 16 is where they talk about different contract types in the federal market. And you know, when you're reading a solicitation, it's gonna tell you what type of contract it is that they plan on issuing. And so FAR Part 16 is where you would go to read more about that contract type. All right, so let's talk about the 3 R's. The 3 R's is what the Montana PTAC has determined as a way to think about the logical steps that you should go through. I mean, if you're attending today's presentation, a lot of you most likely are registered in SAM and maybe some of these other sites, but if you're not, it's okay. So the first step that we like to take clients through is to register. And the reason is we want to get those registrations out of the way so that you can focus on the next 2 R's, and also so you're ready to do business with the government when and if an opportunity comes up, you're ready to go, because you do have to be registered in SAM and have an active SAM registration before you can even submit a bid. eMACS, that's, yes, if you want to do business with the state, you want to be registered. And if, most of their procurements you actually bid through their system. So you would need an account anyways to do that. And then Fed Connect, we will talk about that. That's a little bit different, but we'll talk about that in a few slides. The next R is research. So once you're registered, then we tell clients, okay, now you're in the research phase, and research means a lot of different things. It could be market research, like I said, to try to figure out what agencies make the most sense to do business with, who buys what I sell. And these are some resources that you can go to find that information. We'll go over these in a few slides as well. What current opportunities are out there, or what opportunities are on their forecast that I would, be interested in bidding on when it does come out. Those are some of the questions that, will come out of doing the research, questions and answers. And then respond. Respond can mean a few things too. Definitely respond means actually responding to an opportunity and submitting your offer, but maybe it also means reaching out to state and federal agencies to start developing a relationship with them, to just let them know who you are, market your business to them using your capability statement. So those are some examples of what that means. And so once you do some research and you understand who you should be selling to, who buys what you sell, then you can start moving on to the respond and contact agencies, look for opportunities and submit an offer. That's the idea here. And so let's talk about research. This slide's really important. It is talking about what the federal buying options are, and these are purchasing thresholds. These purchasing thresholds really drive where you're going to find opportunities. So up to $10,000 is what's called the micro purchase threshold. And that means that a federal agency can put up to $10,000 of products and services on a credit card. They don't have to, it's just one method. And, so small buys like that could potentially be put on a credit card. It's important to know that, because if your products and services fall into that smaller dollar range, then maybe it would be, in your best interest to find out who is making credit card purchases in the agency. So that's one thing to think about. Once you get over 10,000 and up to 25,000, that is, you start to get into simplified acquisition procedures, and these do have to be competed, but you're not going to find those opportunities online, which is sam.gov, just like the micro purchase. These top two tiers, you're not going to find those advertised. So again, if your products and services fall in those smaller dollar amounts, you need to go about finding opportunities in a different way. Once you get over 25,000 to 250,000 still falls within simplified acquisition procedures, but you've reached over the $25,000 mark. So now you're going to start to see those opportunities be publicly posted on sam.gov. So it has to be over 25,000. Their federal agencies are required to publicly post it on that site. And then you start getting over $250,000. Of course, they're going to be advertised on sam.gov, but it's going to start getting out of simplified acquisition procedures and get into more these formal, larger contracts. That's when you see formal RFPs come out, where you have to submit, quite a lengthy proposal, and they're negotiated acquisition procedures. Whereas simplified acquisition procedures are really, just a more streamlined, simplified way for the government to buy products and services. And then, just so you know, the simplified acquisition threshold, those are almost always reserved for small businesses. They're set aside for small businesses to bid on. Okay, so this pyramid has to do with the federal government also. And it's really just to kind of try to demonstrate what the agencies, what their procedure is on, what methods they're going to use to buy a product or service. Okay, so there's so many different methods of buying in the federal market. It's beneficial to, first of all, you want to figure out what method they use to buy your products and services, because then you can position yourself appropriately to find opportunities, whether it's prime contract work or subcontract work. So at the top of the pyramid are these agency delivery vehicles, and those are some acronyms that stand for different type of agreements. And so what an agency delivery vehicle is, we'll just use IDIQ as an example. IDIQ stands for indefinite delivery, indefinite quantity. And it's a long-term agreement. They're usually a base year plus 4 option years that the agency will, they'll put it out on sam.gov initially, and they're soliciting to get one or potentially multiple vendors, a pool of vendors potentially, to have agreements under this, have IDIQ agreements with the federal government. And so once they do that, then let's say it's the Forest Service, okay? They have an IDIQ for, we'll say, janitorial services. And they've decided to limit it to 3 vendors. So 3 vendors have IDIQs. And so that means that when the Forest Service needs janitorial services, they're going to first look to see if they have an existing agreement out there that they can just use one of the vendors from, rather than putting it out on sam.gov every single time they need janitorial services. That's not efficient for them. So that's one method. Now, if they don't have an IDIQ or one of these long-term agreements, then they're going to start to look to the special programs. Is there a special program that the agency has that that they can purchase products and services from? And those are just some examples. Then, okay, so maybe there's not a special program. Okay, well then, can we buy it off a GSA schedule? That's an option. GSA schedule is another method of buying. Okay, well, we can't find it on the GSA schedule, so now we're at the bottom of here. So now we're going to open an opportunity on the open market, which is sam.gov. So we'll put out a new solicitation to get the products and services that we need. So the big takeaway from this slide is that when you're doing research, or when you're having Ptac help you do research, is one question that we want to answer is, how does the government buy my products and services? So that you can decide, okay, do I need to compete to get a long-term agreement? Should I be a subcontractor to a prime who has a long-term agreement? Or are they always just putting out purchase orders on sam.gov? And I just need to go to sam.gov every time to look for opportunities. So that's the big takeaway from this slide. And if you have any questions about this slide, feel free to ask them now in the chat, or you can unmute yourself and ask, because that's a loaded slide. Okay, so let's move on to state of Montana buying options. So just like the federal market, the state of Montana, they have purchasing thresholds also. So their credit card purchase is lower than the federal. It's $5,000. So state agencies can just find somebody to do the work or supply the product up to $5,000, and they could buy it on a credit card also. Then, they separate theirs out into goods and services. There's some different dollar thresholds here, but once you get over that, between the $5,000 and $25,000, for example, for services, the agency, they do not have to compete it on eMACS. They can use the eMACS database of vendors, or even Google or Yellow Pages or other methods, and find 3 quotes and pick somebody from the 3 quotes. Sometimes what they'll do is they'll issue what's called a limited solicitation, and they'll email maybe a few vendors from their vendor database, asking them to put in quotes. That's one, I've seen that with some of our clients. Once you get over the larger end of that threshold, the 25 and the 50,000, that's when procurements are pushed to the state procurement division, and they're formally put out as RFPs on the eMACS site. So that becomes a more formal process, and the opportunities are posted on eMACS, and you put your bid in through the eMACS system. So those are the main differences there. The link here, vendor resources, we will look at it, is like a one-stop shop. There's multiple resources on this page, and we'll go through them. But I do want to bring your attention to Fish, Wildlife, and Parks, and Montana Department of Transportation, and the Architect and Engineering Division. They all have their own sites for posting solicitations. So You can also visit their sites to see what they have. I think that's all I have for this slide.
Roz, there's a question. Do you want to take it now or
Yeah,
after?
sure, that's fine. Yep.
So D Meyer, I'm not sure what D stands for, but question is, can you comment on how the threshold is calculated? If they're buying a monthly subscription, is it calculated monthly, yearly, longer? Just curious.
Ooh.
So I think the main idea here, how is it calculated? I mean, that's just what the federal government, the micro purchase 10,000 or under, and then the state 5,000 or less. That's, just set in policy and law. But the idea, the spirit of those thresholds is really intended for, for one-time, transactions that don't need to come out to competition. For example, let's say the federal government really had an opportunity for $30,000. They are not allowed to structure it in 3 $10,000 credit card payments and avoid going out to competition. That's not allowed. So, so to answer your question about subscriptions, I guess I can't answer that specifically. That seems to me to be a longer term situation. They might have to do another kind of agreement, or maybe they would view that as separate transactions given they're far enough apart, monthly payment kind of thing. So does that answer your question?
Yeah, it starts to. David is the D, by the way.
David, thank you, David. Okay.
I need to change that in Zoom. My bad.
Okay.
No, I appreciate it. I was just curious if because it is if you have a contractual length that's only a month, technically, are you just buying 12 $5,000 transactions, or are you buying one $60,000 transaction?
Yeah, 160,000 would be my.
Okay, your speculation.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay. Got it.
Perfect. Good question.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. So now let's take a look at some of these websites. USA Spending is a website to find past federal award information, and the most powerful tool that we use to help businesses define what agencies are buying, what they're selling. Acquisition.gov not only has a copy of the FAR, but they also have some good quick links to the federal agencies' forecasts, and that can be beneficial to, kind of gauge what they're buying for the year. You can start talking to them about, something you see on their forecast. There's usually contact information. If they haven't set it aside, maybe that's a question, that's a conversation you have with them, oh, I'm an 8A business, would you consider setting this aside? Or I'm a woman owned, or whatever. SAM.gov is where you're going to find current opportunities over 25,000. And then the state of Montana, the vendor resources page actually has all of those resources on one page. So let's go ahead and start taking a look at these. And we could spend a lot of time on all these websites, but I'm just going to kind of show you some of the basics here. And so first I'm going to go to USA Spending. And, you don't have to be registered in SAM to look on the site, but I would say you should know what your NAICS codes are. And if you are in SAM, you should at least know what one of those are. If you don't know what those are, please reach out to Ptac and we can help you define what those codes are. So the NAICS codes are, NAICS stands for North American Industry Classification System, and they're a set of codes the federal government uses to identify what it is they're buying. And each solicitation is assigned a NAICS code. So, what we do is we first come into award search and we do an advanced search. And your filter criteria is all here on the left. I'm just gonna do 1 year, but you could select multiple years. Usually 3 years is a good number to go by. And then you're gonna start narrowing it down. You can narrow it down by the agency. You could narrow it down by location. So maybe you only do work in Montana. So we'll just filter it to Montana. I'm gonna add the filter down here so that it adds it down here, and there's a difference between place of performance and recipient. So place of performance is where the work is being done. So if you only can work in Montana, you definitely are going to want to try to put this in as a filter, because Otherwise, you're going to see awards from all over the country. Recipient is where you as a vendor are located. So that's the difference. And then, there's more filter criteria down here. Some of this stuff you're not going to know. So actually, most of it you probably wouldn't know off the top of your head. But here's where I'm going to put the NAICS codes, or I'm going to put one. And we'll just do the janitorial code. That's my favorite code for trainings. And you check mark it, you type it here, you check mark it, and it'll show up down here in the filter criteria. And we'll just submit and see what happens. So in 2021, fiscal year 2021, and the federal fiscal year is October 1 to the end of September. So just keep that in mind. It's not a calendar year. And so you can see that 103 contracts were awarded in 2021 under that NAICS code, where the place of performance was in Montana. So you can see who won the award. That's what we're looking at in this column here. This is the award ID. That's what the agency assigned to the award, the number, the start date, end date, the amount, and there's usually a little bit of a description here, which can be beneficial if you search a different way, maybe by keyword. But if you scroll over, you're going to see the awarding agency, which is the head agency, but really what you want to focus on is the sub agency, because it's the sub agency that's actually the one buying. So these would be potential customers for you as a janitorial company working in Montana. So that's basic information. Now, we can help you do a deeper dive into some of this information, like what kind of contract, was it a GSA schedule, that sort of thing, by downloading the information and kind of just looking at it a little bit closer using a way to organize it called a pivot table. I don't expect you guys to all know how to do that, and that's a service that we would help you do. But you can see, that's the idea here is, okay, not every federal agency is going to be buying your products and services. You want to focus on the ones that are awarding under those codes. So let's go to, I actually have all the tabs open here, so I'll just look at acquisition.gov. And okay, so there's the FAR. We're not gonna get into that, but if you wanted to browse it, you could click on this button here. But we'll scroll down to the bottom of the screen, and they have a nice link for the procurement forecast, and we'll click that. And they show every head agency. So, and then underneath it are all the sub agencies. So if you click the forecast, then there should be somewhere in their forecast should tell you, information about the sub agencies and what they're looking to buy. Let's just to show you, let's just look at Department of Agriculture, and you'll kind of see what I mean. So theirs is laid out like this. They have links to, these are all going to be spreadsheets that get downloaded, and these are the different sub agencies in their forecast. So Agricultural Marketing Service, Research Service, Animal Plant Health, Forest Service, some other stuff here. That's where you would find it. So I'll show you. I'll just download this first one of the Forest Service. And every agency's forecast, they lay it out a little differently, so they're not all going to look the same. Some of them use online tools. They're not even spreadsheets. They're, they have like an online platform that they use. There we go. So this is the forest that was multiple Forest Service ones you saw. I think they're different areas or why they have so many, but there's an email contact. These are the NAICS codes that they're looking to buy. They have a little bit of a description. Let's see what else. Small business, I think, is probably what SB, where's, city of, place of performance here, what quarter they're looking to award it in. This one is not as robust as other ones I've seen. Some of them will give you way more information than this, but contact information to start maybe having a conversation about a future opportunity on their forecast. You could find that information. It is publicly available to you. All right, so let's go ahead and take a look at sam.gov. Hopefully I haven't been logged out. Let's see here. I'm not. Okay, good. Okay, so sam.gov is now a website that houses multiple websites that have been rolled into one. One of them is your SAM registration now lives in this site. And finding contract opportunities that are over 25,000 are also on this site. It used to be on a separate site. When you first log in, you're going to be in your workspace. That's where I am right now. And that's how you access your entity registrations, but that's also how you access other areas of the website. And you can search these publicly, but being logged in gives you a little bit more access within the search tool. So I'm going to click on search. And again, I'm not going to spend a ton of time on this because we have a lot of information to go over, but I want you guys to just get the idea here. Oh, I am logged out. Hold on. Let me get back in. It tricked me. I shouldn't have to put my security code in again. There we go. Okay. So let me go back to search. And once you hit search, you're going to see here where you can select a domain, and that's where you navigate to different areas of the site. So entity information would be like SAM registration information, but we're going to look at contract opportunities. So that's the domain you want to click on. And I have actually a new YouTube video about this, so you can always go to our YouTube channel and watch my video on doing this. Also, we can help you one-on-one. But it's going to open up this different filter criteria. You can try to search by keyword. Maybe it's the federal agency. You know, I mostly use NAICS code, so I'll put that NAICS, that janitorial code in again. You can narrow it by place of performance, so you could narrow it to Montana. Let's try it, see what happens. And as you put information in here, it automatically does this, you know, shows you your results right away. So there is some things came out. Let's see here. This one's, you gotta pay attention to the date. So this is a newer one. These ones are old, so you probably aren't going to care about that one. So let's just go into this one and take a look so I can show you some other things to pay attention to inside of the solicitation, the notice for it. All right, so, okay, so it's for Indian Health Services. They're procuring it out of the billings office here. The first thing you want to look for is when are offers due. Okay, this one's due November 24th. Okay, so do you have enough time to respond to the solicitation? That would be the first question to ask yourself. Now you're going to see the NAICS code that's assigned, and then it's also assigned this other product service code, which is another set of codes the federal government uses to assign to their procurements. Some of those should also be in your SAM registration. They will give a description. Sometimes it's short, sometimes it's really long. This one's actually pretty long. They kind of regurgitated the whole thing in the description. We're going to scroll all the way to the bottom. And you can read that, but I would pay more attention to the documents. These are the things you should be downloading these and reading them, because this is going to tell you what the scope of work is. It's going to tell you, other pertinent information you need to know, what FAR clauses. It's going to give you instructions on how to submit your offer and who to submit it to. That's all in these attachments here. You will see this little blue ribbon down here that says this has controlled attachments. It's very misleading. That's really only applies to some military solicitations in here. If the padlock is unlocked here, then you have access to these. You should be able to download them, okay? If you keep scrolling, then you're gonna also see point of contact information. So these are the people who are assigned to this solicitation. They could, they are probably the people you would be submitting questions to during a question and answer period. They're also probably good contacts to maybe pull out of here and put into a spreadsheet. Maybe you need to contact them later to have a separate conversation with them and, maybe market your business to them and start to develop a relationship. So this is one way to find contact information also. if you scroll back up, a couple other features to look, gosh, this is super long, okay, is, first of all, this menu bar will just jump you down to the section on that page. Then if you click on what's the interested vendors list, this field is not always open. The agency they have to do something on their end on sam.gov to open it. So you may not always see it, I guess is what I'm trying to say. But if some people have added themselves to the interested vendors list, which I don't know, these ones may or may not be worth a while here, but companies who are interested can add themselves here. And this is actually a way that some people find subcontract work, is looking at the interested vendors list and then approaching the potential prime contractors on this list about being a sub on this job. So that's one way to look at getting sub work. There are other ways. You can follow the opportunity here. If you're logged in, you can follow it and you'll get email notices of if there's changes or updates to the posting. You can also save your searches. So let me go back to my list here if I can go to it. Okay, so here's my original search. You can save these and my video goes over that on YouTube. So once you get your filter criteria in here, you can come up to actions and save it, and then you name it. I'm just gonna name it something, save it. And then if you go into your list of saved searches, you can come to the actions and then hit notify, and you'll get email notices of anything that fits that filter criteria that you put in here. So again, these are opportunities that are over 25,000. Those smaller opportunities would be a situation where you would be contact the agency directly to ask about those opportunities. And we can help you find contact information. This is one way to find it. You know, we have some contact information, but you know, you're not alone in that, so don't think that. So let's move on to the state of Montana vendor registration or vendor resources page, excuse me. This page is awesome with the state of Montana. You have all these different resources over here. You have a whole list of contacts. So all of the procurement contacts at the state level are here for all the different state agencies, and you can contact them and have a conversation with them about your business and, you know, find out what their needs are and, you know, what kind of budget they have for what it is that you sell. You know, make those connections. It's worth it. You'd be surprised at what could come out of a conversation. You know, and basically if you don't do anything, nothing's going to happen. So that's kind of where I would be going with that. They have an online tool where you can see what awards have been made in the past. I won't really show it to you, but you know, you can put in your dates and, you know, maybe the state agency, you can, and then it'll populate. So that's kind of like the USA spending, but for the state of Montana. And they also have eMACS resources that, you know, you can log in, you can access current, you know, their current opportunities through this link here. And the state also has their forecast. So you can click on their forecast also, just like the feds have their forecast, and you can see what's coming up for, well, this is still for this year. So their fiscal year is different than ours. I can't remember what it is. I don't know, Deanna, if you remember.
I think it's a July 1, but start date.
Yeah.
I'd have to confirm that though.
Okay. Do we have a question in the chat?
No question that I can see. That was from David earlier.
Okay. Oh, Titus had a question. Oh, he direct messaged.
Oh.
Oh yeah. So how often do we need to renew our SAM registration? So you have to renew it once a year. And your renewal date should be, you know, basically, you know, the same as when you submitted it the previous year. You know, so if you submitted it in November 18th, then your expiration date would be November 18th of 2022. And yes, there are lots of scammy companies out there that email you. You know, you want to focus on the emails that come from sam.gov. Those are the ones to pay attention to. And they'll email you, I think, is it 60, 30, and 2 weeks? Or is that right, Deanna? I can't remember.
60 for sure, 30 for sure. I'm not sure about the 2-week mark, but they definitely, you know, send system generated note reminders to update SAM. Yeah.
Exactly. Okay, perfect. All right, so I think we've flown through most of these slides already. Okay, Fed Connect. I said I would touch on this. So Fed Connect is not a government site, but before SAM.gov and before Fed BizOps, which was what it was before SAM, there was Fed Connect, and the federal agencies would use Fed Connect to post their opportunities. And then the federal government said, you know, no, we have to post them on this site if it's over 25,000. However, there are still some agencies that use this website, but you'll first see an opportunity posted in SAM.gov, and then it'll say, if you want to view the bid documents, you need to go to Fed Connect. And so then you take the notice ID from SAM and you can come to Fed Connect to actually look up the bid documents. I can just show you really quickly where you would do that. So SAM will have a notice ID, and then you can come here, and it's a free site. You can register here for free. You do have to have an active SAM registration to register though, because it pulls information from your SAM. Fed Connect does also have a feature to send you opportunities through email, although the filter, you can't filter them very well. So you might receive a lot of opportunities that don't apply to you, but you can receive notices. You could sign in if you have an account, or you can even just search public opportunities and put the notice ID. Change this to reference number and put it there and search, and then you'd find it. So that's about it. You know, some Fed Connect has some other features. Most of the time, agencies want you to email or mail in your offer. But there is a feature in Fed Connect that you can submit your offer through Fed Connect, and the instructions in the bid documents would tell you if you needed to do that. All right, we've already looked at that too. So we covered a lot of slides on one web screen. So let's talk about set-asides for a little bit here. There's you know, there's a few set-asides. The one set aside is for small business. So 23% of all federal contracting dollars are set aside for small business. And then off of that are subcategories. So you have service disabled owned veteran, woman owned business, hub zone, and your small disadvantaged business, which is the 8A program. And those are the overarching federal wide percentages that is the federal goal to set aside procurements for those set asides. So if you meet the requirements of these set-asides, you know, which we're not going to get into today, you know, we can help you get certified. We can help you determine if you are really eligible, make you understand. We can help you through the process as well. You know, aside from hub zone, well, and small business. So to be a small business, that's determined by the dollar amount that you, for your revenue that you've put into SAM. You know, that determines whether you're a small business. So that's not an actual certification. Right now, service disabled veteran owned is still self-certification, but that is changing. Unless you do business with the VA or the FAA, you have to get certified through the VA, but that's all going to be changing, you know, soon. And the SBA is going to actually take it over, and there will be no more self-certification for veterans either. But, you know, like for veteran owned or woman owned, you know, and 8A, like 8A has to be, the main requirement is it has to be 51% or more owned by a person who is socially and economically disadvantaged. And the woman owned has to be 51% or more owned and controlled by a woman. You know, those are the main requirements, or one of the main requirements, but there's definitely others. And a lot of these have to do with not only ownership, but also control. So it can't just be ownership on paper. That person also has to be in control of the business. And there's specific guidance in the law, in the CFR, that tells you what that means. And we can help you determine that. And, you know, determine if your governing documents are going to have any, you know, maybe some red flags that pop out to SBA when they review your application. You know, we can help review all of that ahead of time and bring any issues to your attention before you go through the application process and get denied for for reasons that you weren't even aware of. So, I would strongly recommend having Ptac help you with those.
Roz, there's a question here
Oh, okay, go for it.
from Taylor. Do you know when the vet-owned certification is changing?
Oh my gosh. I think it's they were going to give it like a two years to start changing, but that 2 years is already starting to creep up. I think it's going to start changing sometime in 2022. I'd have to fact check it though.
Yeah, I would have to fact check it, but I think it will actually be longer than that based on what I've read recently. I mean, you can appreciate the laborious process involved with transitioning in a program from one agency to another and aligning the rules and et cetera, et cetera. So for now, business as usual, and we can help you with the VA certification.
Yeah, for sure. And then Titus has a question, does Native American owned fall under any of those categories? Yes, Native American owned businesses, well, they could fall under more than one category. Like if the Native American owned business was a Native American woman, they could potentially be a woman owned business, but they would also qualify for 8A because they're presumed to be Native Americans are presumed to be economically and socially disadvantaged by the SBA. So yes, to answer your question, yes. Oh, sorry, I keep clicking. So these are some of the advantages of being certified. They make you eligible to compete on acquisitions that are set aside for those categories. So really it lowers your competition pool. There can be some sole source opportunities, especially with 8A. Certain conditions have to be met, but there is, the agencies do have some sole source authority for those set aside categories. Could be beneficial as a subcontractor. So maybe you help one of the large primes to meet their subcontracting goals because these large primes will be on, they'll have these large contracts that require a subcontracting plan. And so they have to have subs that are small businesses, 8A businesses, etc. And so if you fit one of those categories, you could help them meet their goals and be a subcontractor, help them meet their subcontracting goals. You can even help the agency meet their goals, even if it's a small purchase and it's not even set aside. You can still help the agency meet their goals. And there could be some benefits in the private sector too. I just like to mention that some large companies will have supplier diversity programs that some of these federal certifications also would work for that. So there are multiple advantages. Deanna, do you have other advantages that you can think of?
Well, no, I think you've covered it quite nicely. I would encourage everyone on the call to examine, whether or not a certification fits them. The certifications don't do you any good unless you have a strategic plan to execute and leverage those certifications. It's because the phone doesn't necessarily just ring if you have the certification, but if you figure out through working with us how to kind of drill down into some of the agencies, some of these sites have a sole source authority associated with them, which can mean that depending on the circumstances, and we won't get into the details on that too much right now, an agency can actually negotiate directly with you without the opportunity going to competition. So I would say that's a pretty significant competitive advantage if you can figure out the formula. So that's what I would add. Thanks, Roz.
Yeah, thanks. So let's talk about where you need to start. Okay, so these are some readiness factors to think about. And if you're already registered in SAM and you've done a little government contracting, or you're just registered but you just didn't really know what to do next, think about your readiness factors. Are what kind of successful past performance do you have? Yeah, maybe government, but even commercial, are you capable of completing a government contract? What kind of, they look for past performance, the federal and the state. They want to see that you are capable of doing the work, that you've completed contracts of a similar nature in the past. Those are things that they're looking for, especially in a competitive RFP situation. clear focus. Are you, do you have a strong business plan? Do you know what it is you want to offer to the government? We have had agencies tell us that they don't want to see people in like their SAM registration, for example, list just gobs and gobs of codes, because they don't really view that you can be a jack of all trades. It's one thing if the codes are related and those are your core services, but if you're putting in construction, but then you're also putting in janitorial, well, I don't know. I don't see the connection there necessarily, but I mean, those are just things to think about is, know what it is that you want to offer to the government. And what are your goals? If you don't, and this goes along with, along with capacity, do you have the ability to do a multi-million-dollar contract? You've got to really look at that. I mean, could you, if you looked at a solicitation today that was anticipated to be $2 million, do you actually, could you perform on it? Or are you more suited to do something smaller? Do you have the people? Do you have the equipment? Do you have the money, the working capital? Those are things to think about. And so we'll talk about capacity. You do have to be technologically proficient. You have to be able to, work the, online systems and be okay with sending and receiving emails. And, everything is online now. So you really have to be pretty proficient in that. I mean, we can help you with some of that, but you have to learn too. Adaptable. I mean, gosh, things always are changing in the government marketplace. So you have to be willing and ready to adapt to things that are changing. Employees and time, touched on employees already. Time, do you, is your commercial work really, really busy? Do you even have the time to do a government job? Do you even have the time to look and submit a bid? Those are all things to think about. And commitment to learning, commitment to making mistakes and trying again. Those are all good readiness factors to consider. Okay. So where do I start? Continued, these are some suggestions. So first, identifying your target markets, which we looked at in USA spending. You could, look at, do that similar idea with the state of Montana. Also, who is it that's buying what you're selling? That's the first step. Maybe try to seek smaller opportunities. Maybe it's a small state opportunity or local government opportunity. Maybe it's, it doesn't have to be the large projects right now. Start out small, start to build up some performance history. And also consider subcontracting, maybe your business is suited better for that anyways. There's different strategies for finding subcontracts. But that can be a good way to start building performances is working with some of the primes on their contracts as a subcontractor. So these are some ways to identify smaller opportunities. The best way on the federal side is, if it's under that 25, if you're looking for the opportunities that are less than 25,000, you really do need to reach out and ask the questions. What do you have coming up that's under 25,000? This is what I do. I would be, please keep me in mind when you're, looking for vendors to meet your needs that are under 25,000. So that's reaching out. That's reaching out to them individually. The state of Montana, the opportunities that are on eMACS, I wouldn't say they're small. A lot of them aren't, but the state procedures I think are a little easier to kind of navigate. But then you have the limited solicitations, and you can also reach out to the state agencies directly to find out what their needs are for smaller buys. So, I'm sure there might be other federal agencies that do that, but the acquisition teams in Montana and Northern Idaho have actually post opportunities that are less than 25,000 on their websites. And these are live links for those. Let me see if I can open one here just to show you what I mean, which is really nice. I mean, you can't get notices of these. You have to, oh my gosh, their website has changed. I'll have to change these before I send these out, but we'll go to contracting here. But yeah, so you'll have to check these manually to see, what's coming up here. Yeah, they've really changed this. So I definitely need to update these slides, but so it just kind of takes you in a weird path now, but I'll put a more direct path on those links. But you can see here, less than 25,000. And it'll list, you know, what the forest and then which ones have opportunities. So this one's got a small janitorial opportunity. I've seen roofing, I've seen, you know, I've just seen various things in here. You never know. And it's not all services. I think there's products on here too, but you would be able to get the bid documents from these links. So this is another resource to go to find small opportunities, at least with the Forest Service. And then, you know, other agencies, you probably want to reach out to them directly. So let's talk about subcontracting. These are some questions and tips to think about to, you know, guide you towards a subcontracting path. And maybe you start out as a subcontractor and eventually you've built up your performance and your business a little more that you'd be ready to be a prime. I mean, that's a really good way to go about it. So first you want to see, well, who's winning awards, you know, that may need your services. That's one thing to think about, you know, so you can use USA spending for that. It's probably one of the best ways to find who's been awarded those contracts. And you can contact those primes individually. What companies have long-term contracts? So that's going back to those long-term contracts like IDIQs. You know, you can find out from the agencies who the agreement holders are for long-term contracts like IDIQs, like, you know, the Park Service, they have, you know, several construction related IDIQs, and maybe you're a painter, you know, maybe it would be worth it for you to, as a painter, to contact some of the primes who hold those long-term agreements to see what sub work you could get for the duration of that contract. That's a strategy to think about. You know, think about what the supporting industries are, you know, what industries utilize your services. Because that'll help you with finding out the primes that you could do subcontract work for. So if you're a painter, you know, who do you support mostly? Construction related, probably. So you would want to find out who's winning construction related awards under construction codes, and then, you know, reach out to the primes that way. So that's what I mean when I say what industries do you support. And yeah, I think.
Roz, I've got a question from David.
Oh, sure.
Do you know the rules and or usage of local school districts purchasing through state level agreements? I'm not yet familiar with Montana and if they buy locally or go through state vehicles. So
the term contracts is one. It's probably the only one I really know of. But let me show you.
And they certainly do buy locally as well. And we can put you in contact with, at least here in Billings, with our school district people, but and our city of Billings people as well.
Yeah, I know that they oftentimes float between big buys on state vehicles, small buys locally, that kind of thing. So just curious.
And some states can even purchase off the GSA schedule, which is a federal schedule. But if states and local governments can get qualified, they can purchase off that too. That's an aside. But.
Yes. And that's all the term contracts for the state on that vendor resources page. There you can access them there. So, and look at who's on them. Okay, so how do you look for subcontracts? We've kind of touched on this already. You know, research award winners and USA spending on the federal side. You know, you could do the same on the state of Montana too. You know, they have that tool to show you who's winning, who has won awards, and contact the primes directly. So you wouldn't have to contact the federal or the state buyers. You would do your business with the prime. And looking at the interested vendors list in sam.gov, I showed you that. That's another way. You can utilize Subnet. I say once in a while there's opportunities here because it's a pretty underutilized tool, and I'm not sure if it's because prime contractors don't know about it or they have another way of finding subcontractors, but It's a website that's run by the SBA, and I can just pop in here really quick and show you. But it's worth it to look, because I have, once in a while I've, randomly gone in here with a client and there's actually been something that is maybe worth checking out. So, click on the state that you're looking to do business in. We'll just click on Montana and it'll tell you, oh, well, look at this. Interesting. Look at interesting. There is stuff in here. So you can, here's the solicitation. And if you click in here, it usually tells you who to contact. They have a good little description here, what they're looking for, what the NAICS code is. And that's about it. So you'd want to make contact with these people and talk to them about that. So,
And these are companies that are out-of-state companies, but they might put in a bid for this particular opportunity and then hire a sub in Montana to do the work. So not to say that your company couldn't directly do the work, but sometimes, this is how it ends up working out.
yep, exactly. Interesting. Well, I'm glad there was stuff in there to show you guys, because it's not always like that. All right, so let's talk about respond. So you've done your research, you figured out who the agencies are, or you've decided, oh, I'm going to be a subcontractor, whatever. You've figured out what kind of, a general path of where you want to go. Now it's time to respond, and this means different things. So, okay, you found out that the Forest Service is a potentially good customer for you. So you could make some individual contacts. Maybe it's reaching out and, asking about small dollar buys. Maybe you ask about, who, trying to find out who holds that credit card in that agency. And, maybe it's a facilities person and you really want to be on their radar because you sell a product that they would need, that they could buy on a credit card and they would need, every so often. That's one thing to respond, is to reach out. You could respond to an opportunity that you find, whether it's from sam.gov or, another source, or if it is, something that is competed, but, still less than 25,000 and the agency has sent you the bid documents, that would be submitting your bid and responding to it. Responding to a sources sought notice. I didn't go over this in sam.gov when we were looking at the contract opportunities, but sources sought are a special type of posting in sam.gov where they're not opportunities, but they often could become opportunities in the future, but it's the way the federal government does market research. They're trying to find out, get information, gather it to see what capable businesses are out there that could do the work. And a lot of times they want responses from small businesses and all the set aside categories, because they're looking to see if they can set it aside. And so even though your response isn't going to result in the actual work, because they may or may not put out a solicitation, it does put you in front of the buyer. So it is a way of marketing, and you could potentially have an influence on their acquisition strategy, because if you're a woman-owned business and you're certified and you respond and maybe another woman-owned business responds, and they could say, oh, we have some women-owned businesses that we can expect to receive 2 or more offers from. We're going to put this out as a set aside for women-owned small business. I mean, that's pretty, that's a high level what they're going through, a thought process in their head, but essentially that's what we're looking at here. Or attending an industry day. A lot of these a lot of agencies are doing these online now. I'm sure they are probably doing some in person right now. I'm not sure, but you can find these postings also on sam.gov under special notices. And it's a way to meet with people in the agency that are the buyers, or maybe they're program managers, or they have some influence or some part in the acquisition process. And it's a way to learn more information about the agency. So attending an industry day is also, a way to respond, and it's beneficial to you if you're able to do that. Let's see. Oh, Vince has a question. Vince, you can ask your question in the chat, or you can ask it over the phone, whatever you want to do. I don't know, he has his hand raised, so.
You'll have to unmute Vince.
I'll give him a second. If not, we can tackle it later here. So reaching out to federal agencies, there's some different ways to do it. It's pretty, can be, pretty traditional marketing. Maybe you meet with them face to face. You would want some marketing tools with you. Maybe it's a business card or brochure that you have. Maybe you have a website. If you don't, it'd be, you don't have to, but if you do, the agencies will look at it. Oh, Vince, are you there? Can you hear it? You were unmuted. And then your marketing pitch. And then off of this page, I would say capability statement is the most important when it comes to reaching out to federal agencies. And what that is like a one-page resume for your business. And there's certain information that needs to go on it. We have a set of good instructions and examples that we can give you to help you create one. But it's a tool that you can use if you have an in-person meeting with them. You bring copies with you. If you are meeting virtually, you can send it to them through email or through whatever system you're using to meet with them virtually. You can send it through email, even just to introduce yourself. But these are the main sections of the capability statement. And it's really just to talk about, the information, what your business does. And this is just a basic layout. You have information like your codes and your DUNS numbers and any certifications you have, what kind of past performance you've done, what makes you different than your competition, what are your core competencies, and that's the gist here. And you can tailor it to the individual agencies too. You can have kind of a general one, but you can tailor it to agencies based on what their mission is, or maybe so you can put information on here that that agency would really be interested in knowing about your company, that would directly benefit their agencies. And maybe the past performance you include is past performance that would be related to what that agency does. Those are ways you can tailor it. It's also good to have a marketing pitch, whether you're meeting with them in person or over the phone. Anytime you're going to be talking to somebody, you want to be able to succinctly and quickly explain to them what you do. In 30 seconds, okay, maybe between 30 seconds and a minute, but you just want to practice it, create it and practice it, and be confident in what you're saying and not be wishy-washy. You really want to display to the agency that you know what you're doing. So that's what I would say about that. And let's see, pitch. We already talked about this. Practice with your friends or family. You can practice with us. I'll listen to your pitch. That's fine. I'm happy to listen to it. But have one in your back pocket for when you need it. So who do you talk to with an agency? So these are federal people, and then below I put the link back to the state of Montana procurement contacts because you can contact them also. But within a federal agency, the people you probably will talk to the most would be a small business specialist or a contracting officer. Small business specialists, they are tasked with helping the agency meet their small business goals. They know about what the agency is looking for and doing. They can help you find the forecast, and they can look at your capability statement and see if there's a good match. They could maybe even be a person to put you in contact with another person that would be better to talk to. They're a good resource. Contracting officers and they have other names depending on their level of warrants they can purchase, the amount of money they can use to purchase on behalf of the government, but they are the ones that can buy. They are the ones that are allowed to spend taxpayer money, and they're the ones that are allowed to change your contract in any way. But they're also a good person to talk to because obviously they have a pulse on what it is that they're buying, the agency is buying. And maybe they could also connect you to other people in the agency that you may need to talk to. Then there's program managers and end users. These are the people who are creating the need within the agency. So they're saying, okay, we need janitorial services, and then they're going to push it up to a contracting officer to actually go out and buy. Program managers and end users are a little harder to find in the agency and talk to. I mean, sometimes you can find their information online. You may find them at an industry day. Maybe you might even find them if you have done a government job, even if it was small, you may have actually talked to them. But you know, if you can find out who they are, those are people, you know, good people to talk to, because you can talk to them about what you do and that you're interested in having the agency buy it, and say you express to them how your products or services would be really good for the agency, and then they can maybe talk to the contracting officer to potentially, you know, maybe put out a solicitation, or, you know, whatever. They can't do the buying, but they have a role in the acquisition process. So, and we just talked about this slide. These are some links to find small business specialists. There are small business representatives or specialists, you know, locally in Montana for our agencies here. A lot of them are in DC, and that's okay. I mean, they're working on behalf of the entire agency, so it's okay to contact somebody that's not in Montana. These are just two different links that can help you find some of that information. We can help you find it. Contracting officers, you know, we've just already talked about that. So these are just some tips for contacting government buyers. You can email or call, use your marketing pitch, ask to set up a meeting. Maybe you ask to be put into your app. You want to ask questions to find out, you know, who you should be in contact with. Maybe it's a program manager, you know, maybe it's an end user with that credit card, asking about opportunities that are less than 25,000. You know, these are just some tips. The reason you want to talk to somebody in the agency is you're trying to get information that's going to help you in the future and help you with your strategy and getting government business. That is the idea here, is you're getting information. And we've already touched on this, submitting a response a little bit. We've touched on it. So it could be a request for information or a sources sought. Maybe it's a RFQ that you found, you know, or, you know, somehow got word of. Maybe it's a formal RFP or an invitation for bid. These are actual types of postings you can see in SAM.gov, or maybe you get them sent to you by a representative from the agency. And, you know, these are some things that you'll see. Tips though, read everything really carefully, follow the instructions, have us help you navigate that so that you're submitting an appropriate response to whether it's an RFQ or an RFP, whatever it may be. So we'll help you with that. And that's really it for today. You know, I would just say, you know, this was labeled as waiting for the phone to ring. And the reason that is because you can't wait for the phone to ring. Just because you're registered in SAM or just because you're registered in eMACS does not mean the government's going to call you. You have to actively pursue government work. And you have to figure out where your business fits so that you can have a focused strategy. And that's, you know, what we're here to help you with. So that would probably be my biggest piece of advice, and probably the biggest takeaway from this is to don't just sit around. You have to do something. And even if it's just finding an opportunity and just trying to put in a bid and seeing what happens, I mean, that's good practice, to just find something, read through it, practice reading through it, you know, practice putting it together, and maybe even submit it. And, you know, maybe you won't win, and that's okay, but you definitely won't win if you don't submit anything ever. So that's what I would say about that. I'm ready for questions. Deanna's, I'm sure she's ready for questions.
Awesome information, Roz. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thank you guys for coming. I'm so happy. And yes, we'll email the slides. I don't see anything in the chat.
No, I don't see it. Just unmute if you want to ask a question. I would just add, you know, look, don't get overwhelmed. Don't get discouraged. All of this is learning, and it's learning in steps and over time. And, you know, that's what we're here to help you. We're here to help you, support you through it. And so, you know, if your company doesn't learn how to do this, trust me, other ones will. So these government contracts are business opportunities. And so that's always what the goal we're looking toward is leveraging these business opportunities. So make sure you give us a ring.
Well, can you just briefly, Deanna,
Yeah.
just describe what that engagement is with you guys?
Absolutely. We, well, and just to give you a little more background, I think Roz covered this, I can't remember, but PTACs are nationwide. There's PTACs in every state and the territories. We get most of our funding from the Department of Defense. And our only job all day long is to be a teacher, a coach, a consultant to companies that are, contracting with the government. So we don't help with loans or business plans or, more general business stuff. We're only government contracting. And so to set up an appointment with us, we have you sign up to be a client. You can do that on our website or just call Roz or me and we'll just set you up in our system. And we have a little request for service agreement we want you to sign, and then we usually make an initial appointment. We can meet in person, or of course we're doing a lot of via Zoom this way. We were doing that before the pandemic anyway, because our clients are all over the state. So we'll set up a time just to get acquainted, get to know your business, kind of see where you're at in the whole contracting process, what, specific questions, of course, that you might have. And then from there, we'll make a plan to have more follow-up meetings and help you make steps towards your goal and help you just get a little closer to realizing those opportunities.
And is there a fee we would need to be a client of yours?
No fee. Your tax dollars are already paying for us to help you all day long. So
Very
we don't
good.
charge you
Even
anything.
better. Even better.
Right. Yeah.
Awesome.
Mhm.
All right. Thank you.
Yep, you're welcome. Are you in Billings here, David? Where
No, I actually live in Kalispell, Whitefish.
Oh, okay. Yep. So we've got a center in Kalispell, center in Missoula, Butte, and they kind of cover Bozeman, Helena area. We've got a center in Great Falls, Billings, Lewistown. So we've got good coverage across the state. So
Very
we'll
good.
get you all in the right spot.
This was very good. I use SAM.gov a lot, and but some of the new things on here are pretty good. I mean, I've developed relationships with Fish, Wildlife, and Parks to where
Wonderful.
our company gets sole source requisitions to bid on smaller projects in the area. So you can, really develop relationships with some of the agencies depending on who they are, and even the federal on small. I saw one that went with BLM to Garnet, Montana, ghost town up there that I was watching the BLM, that they single sourced to an 8A.
Yep.
Yeah, that it was just small enough that they could do that I was going to bid on. Unfortunate for us, but if you are an 8A or another small business, there are those opportunities.
Absolutely. And one of the things Andy and I talked about this morning that we offer here at the PTAC when a company is ready is a bid match service, which can be very valuable and time saving. We set up a profile for your company. It contains mostly salient keywords that describe what you do, maybe a code or two, and then we set up a geographic region. And then what our bid match does is scrubs the federal and the state and the local databases to pull in the opportunities that match your company so that you get an email notification. So, you still want to have a search set up on SAM.gov and a registration in eMACS that pulls from those sources. But, a little redundancy doesn't hurt a thing. And, we can pull from a wider region too. So it's a valuable service that we offer. So it can help you, just get a handle on what's out there and who to contact. Absolutely.
That's where I'm at right now. I'm just trying to let people know I have a drone business, and most solicitations don't even ask for a drone. So you're just trying to shove this, I guess, in their face to let them know I'm out there.
Yeah, and actually, that's a really good example of a type of product that might take some education. That's where, being registered, of course, and having all that in order, but then having your capability statement, reaching out, asking for those meetings, those capability briefings to inform the agencies of what your capabilities are. And that's even where a program manager would probably be the person, the engineer in the field, the mechanic in the shop, right? So because they're the ones that are driving the buying decisions up the chain to the COs. And so that's, yeah, we can help you kind of fine tune that. Where are you at, Taylor?
I'm out of Sims, Montana. It's about 40 minutes from Great Falls.
Okay, great. Yeah. Well, just after this today, just give us a ring and we'll get you connected and get you going in the right direction.
Will do. You guys will email the slides. You already have our emails.
Yeah, we will. Mhm.
Perfect. Thank
Yeah,
you.
I'm gonna go through the links again since those Forest Service links were a little wonky, but I'll do that before I send them out. So.
Right.
And we are recording today, and I did put our YouTube channel in the chat, and so I'll post this on YouTube if you want to reference it again. There's other trainings that we've recorded on our YouTube.
Yes.
So I mean, you have access to all of that. So, yeah.
Yep. Any other questions? Well, if you think of anything after, just send me a note or Roz, and again, we'll connect you with the advisor that kind of covers your area and start working together.
I'm very glad I attended,
Yeah.
and I'll be talking to you about bid match
That's right.
sometime soon.
Okay, Andy.
All right.
I got a proposal to write this afternoon here yet.
Okay. Yeah, we'll touch base for sure.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah,
Wonderful.
thanks everybody, and have a good day, and hopefully we'll see you next time for something else. So have a good day.
Yep. Thanks, Roz.
Okay, bye.
Bye.
Bye.